Welcome to the Heart's Haven. Let the story begin. Poor girl showed him an old photo. The millionaire saw himself and broke down. A little girl stood at the edge of a glass tower, clutching something so tightly her knuckles had turned pale. No one noticed her. Not the suited executives rushing past, not the black cars pulling up to the curb, not even the security guard who had already told her twice to move along. But she didn't move. She just stood there, eyes fixed on the revolving doors, as if she were waiting for the world to finally see her. "I just need 1 minute," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Just one. Inside, Daniel Carter stepped out of the elevator, his reflection following him in every polished surface. At 42, he had everything people spent their lives chasing: corner office, skyline views, a company worth more than most cities. And yet, as he adjusted the cuff of his tailored suit, there was nothing in his expression. No urgency, no warmth, just routine. Another meeting done, another day almost over. He walked through the lobby without looking up, his phone buzzing softly in his hand. Another message, another deal, another reminder that the world needed him but no one truly knew him. He was 3 steps from the door when someone blocked his path. A small figure. Daniel stopped, more out of surprise than intention. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide but steady. She couldn't have been older than 8. Her jacket was too thin for the breeze outside, her shoes worn at the edges, but what caught him wasn't her clothes. It was what she held. A photograph. Old, creased, faded at the corners like it had been folded and unfolded too many times to count. "Are you Mr. Carter?" she asked, her voice soft but certain. He hesitated. People usually said his name with urgency, with respect, sometimes even fear. But this was different. There was no expectation in her voice, just hope. "I am," he replied, already half turning away. "If you're here for donations, you need to contact—" "I'm not," she said quickly. That stopped him. She stepped forward, lifting the photo with both hands like it was something fragile, something sacred. "My mum said, you might recognize this." Daniel sighed under his breath, a flicker of impatience crossing his face. He had seen this before, people with stories, with claims, with things they wanted him to believe. He almost waved her off. Almost. But something in the way she held that photo, careful, deliberate, made him pause. Against his better judgment, he reached for it. The moment his fingers touched the worn paper, something shifted. He looked down, and everything inside him went still, because staring back at him from that faded image was himself. Younger, smiling, arms wrapped around someone just out of frame. A version of him he hadn't seen in years. A version of him he had buried. His breath caught. The noise of the lobby disappeared. The city outside faded into silence. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel Carter didn't know what to say. Daniel did not realize he had stopped breathing until his chest tightened. The photograph trembled slightly between his fingers, not because of the cold, not because of the breeze slipping through the opening doors behind him, but because something deep inside him had just been touched, something he had spent years trying to forget. He stared at the image again, slower this time. The younger version of himself looked back with a kind of light in his eyes that no longer existed. His arm was wrapped around someone just out of frame, but the edge of a soft blue dress was visible, along with a strand of light brown hair caught in motion. He knew that dress. He knew that moment. He knew her. Emma. The name did not come out of his mouth, but it filled the silence between his thoughts, like a whisper he could not escape. "How did you get this?" he asked quietly, his voice no longer sharp, no longer distant. The girl shifted her weight from one foot to the other, watching him carefully, as if trying to read something in his face. "My mum kept it," she said. "She said it was from a long time ago, when things were still good." Daniel swallowed. The lobby lights suddenly felt too bright. The polished marble floors, the quiet hum of conversations around them, the distant chime of the elevator, all of it felt unreal, like he was standing inside a memory instead of the present. He lowered himself slowly, crouching down so that he was at her level. It was not something he did. Not with strangers. Not with anyone, really. But this did not feel like a normal moment. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lily," she replied. "Lily Harper." The last name landed heavier than it should have. Harper. His mind moved quickly now, piecing together fragments he had buried. Late nights, quiet laughter. Promises made in a version of himself that believed he had time for everything. For love. For a future that did not revolve around boardrooms and quarterly reports. Emma Harper. He closed his eyes for half a second, just long enough for the memory to sharpen. When he opened them again, Lily was still there, still watching him, still holding on to something much bigger than a photograph. "She told me about you," Lily continued, her voice soft but steady. "Not a lot, just that you were important once." Important once. The words settled into his chest with a weight he could not ignore. Daniel looked back down at the photograph, tracing the edge of it with his thumb. There was a small crease running through the center, right across his own face, like time itself had tried to split that moment in half. "Where is your mum now?" he asked, more gently than he intended. Lily hesitated. Her fingers tightened slightly around the sleeve of her jacket, but her eyes did not leave his. "She cannot come," she said, "but she told me if I ever needed help I should find you." Daniel felt something shift again, deeper this time. Not just memory, responsibility. He looked at her, really looked this time, at the way she stood so still, as if she had practiced being brave, at the way she held herself together, even in a place that clearly did not belong to her. And for the first time in years, Daniel Carter felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest. Not control, not distance, but the quiet, unsettling feeling that this moment was about to change everything. Daniel did not stand up right away. He stayed there, crouched in the middle of the lobby, the photograph still in his hand, as if moving too quickly might break whatever fragile thread had just connected his past to the present. Lily watched him in silence. There was no impatience in her eyes, no expectation, just a quiet kind of waiting, the kind that suggested she had learned early in life not to rush people, because sometimes they leave. Around them, the world continued as if nothing had changed. Shoes clicked across marble floors. A receptionist answered a call with practiced calm. The revolving doors turned again and again, letting in gusts of cool afternoon air. But inside that small space between them, time felt slower. Daniel finally exhaled and rose to his feet, though the movement felt unfamiliar, like he was stepping into a role he had not played in years. "Have you eaten today?" he asked. The question surprised even him. Lily blinked, as if she had not expected that to be the first thing he would say. She hesitated, then gave a small shrug. "A little," she answered. "This morning." Daniel nodded, though something in his chest tightened again. Morning. It was already late afternoon, nearly 5 o'clock. He glanced toward the glass doors, where the fading sunlight stretched long shadows across the pavement outside. Then he looked back at her. "Come with me," he said gently. Lily did not move right away. "Am I in trouble?" she asked, her voice careful, almost rehearsed. The question landed harder than anything else she had said. Daniel shook his head immediately. "No, you are not in trouble." He paused, softening his tone even more. "I just think we should sit down somewhere, talk properly." For a moment, she studied him, as if weighing something invisible. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay." He gestured toward a quiet lounge area just off the main lobby, a place usually reserved for high-level clients. Leather chairs, low lighting, a small table with neatly arranged magazines no one ever read. As they walked, Daniel became aware of the subtle shift in attention around them. A few employees glanced up, not because of him, they were used to him. Because of her. A small girl, walking beside the CEO, holding nothing but a worn photograph and a quiet kind of courage. He pulled out a chair for her without thinking. Another unfamiliar gesture. Lily climbed up onto the seat, her feet not quite touching the floor. She placed her hands neatly in her lap, like she had been taught to make herself small in places that did not belong to her. Daniel remained standing for a second, then sat across from her. The photograph rested between them now. A bridge. He leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his knees. "Lily," he began, his voice steady but softer than it had been all day, "what did your mum tell you about me, exactly?" She looked down at the photo, then back at him. "She said you were someone who used to smile more," Lily said. The words were simple, but they landed with quiet precision. Daniel felt it again, that subtle shift beneath the surface. Not sharp, not overwhelming, just enough to make him realize something he had not admitted in a long time. He did not remember the last time he had smiled like that man in the picture. Lily tilted her head slightly. She also said, "You did not know everything." Daniel's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" Lily reached into her jacket pocket, slowly this time, carefully, as if what she was about to reveal mattered just as much as the photograph. And when her hand came back out, she was holding something else. A folded piece of paper, worn at the edges, creased from being opened and closed again and again. "My mom said, if I ever found you," Lily whispered, "I should give you this." Daniel stared at it. For a moment, he did not reach out, because deep down, he already knew. Whatever was written inside that paper was going to change more than just his day. It was going to change the story he had been telling himself for years. Daniel looked at the folded paper as if it might disappear if he reached too quickly. For a moment, neither of them moved. The quiet hum of the building seemed distant now, like it belonged to another world. The only sound that mattered was the faint rustle of that worn piece of paper in Lily's small hands. "Go ahead," she said softly. There was no pressure in her voice, no urgency, just trust. Daniel slowly extended his hand. His fingers brushed against the paper, and he felt it immediately, the softness from being handled too many times, the slight unevenness along the edges where it had been folded and unfolded again and again. This was not something written once and forgotten. This was something carried. He unfolded it carefully. Each crease opened like a step backward in time. The handwriting was familiar. Not just recognizable, but deeply, unmistakably familiar. Emma. He could see it in the curves of each letter, in the way certain words leaned slightly to the right, like they were reaching for something. His chest tightened. He had not seen her handwriting in years. Not since the last note she left on his kitchen counter, the one he had not answered. He began to read. "Daniel, if you are reading this, then it means Lily found you. I was not sure she ever would, but I hoped she might." His breath slowed. The words were simple. No anger, no accusation. Just honesty. "I never told you everything, not because I wanted to keep it from you, but because I thought I had time. And then, time moved faster than I expected." Daniel swallowed, his eyes scanning each line more carefully now. "I found out I was pregnant a few weeks after you left. I tried to reach you, but by then, your world had already changed. You were building something bigger, and I did not know where I fit anymore. His grip on the paper tightened slightly. The room felt smaller. I did not want to be a reminder of something you had already chosen to walk away from. So I made a choice too. I raised her the best I could, and Daniel, she is everything good I remember about you. Daniel's vision blurred for a moment, but he did not look away. Across from him, Lily sat very still, watching his face, searching for something she could not name. She has your eyes when she is curious, your silence when she is thinking, and your heart when she chooses to care. The words landed deeper than anything else. His heart, a part of himself he had not thought about in years. I am not writing this to ask for anything, not money, not apologies, just truth. She deserves to know where she comes from, and maybe you deserve to know who she is. Daniel's breathing grew uneven now, each inhale heavier than the last. At the bottom of the page, the handwriting softened. If you see her, please do not look away. She is not a mistake. She is the part of us that stayed. There was no signature. There did not need to be. Daniel lowered the paper slowly. For a moment, he said nothing. He could not. Because everything he had carefully built, every wall, every distance, every decision that kept his past locked away, had just been undone by a few lines written in a familiar hand. He looked up at Lily. Really looked. At her eyes. At the quiet strength in the way she sat. At the small, steady presence she carried into a world that had never made space for her. And suddenly, the photograph made sense. Not just the image, but why she had come. Why she had waited. Why she had believed he would understand. Daniel's voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. How long have you known? Lily did not hesitate. My whole life, she said. The answer settled into the space between them, like something that had always been there. Waiting. Just like her. Daniel did not realize his hands were shaking until the paper made a soft, uneven sound as he placed it back on the table. For years, he had lived with certainty. Clear decisions, clean lines, a past that stayed where it belonged behind him. But now, sitting across from a quiet little girl with steady eyes and a story he had never known, that certainty began to unravel. My whole life. Her words echoed again in his mind. Not dramatic, not loud. Just true. Daniel leaned back slowly in his chair, his gaze drifting for a moment, not away from her, but through something deeper. Through years he could suddenly see more clearly than ever before. All the moments he had filled with work. All the nights he had convinced himself that moving forward meant leaving everything else behind. He had told himself it was necessary. That success required sacrifice. But he had never asked what, exactly, he was sacrificing. Until now. His eyes returned to Lily. She had not moved. Still sitting upright. Still composed in a way no child should have to be. "How is your mum?" he asked quietly. Lily's fingers intertwined in her lap, a small, almost invisible motion. "She gets tired more now," she said. "Some days she cannot get out of bed for long." Daniel felt that same tightness in his chest return, but this time it carried something else with it. Not just memory. Regret. "And you came here by yourself?" he asked. She nodded. "I took the bus," she said simply. "It was 2 transfers. I wrote it down so I would not forget." 2 transfers. Daniel pictured it without meaning to. The distance, the time, the determination it must have taken for someone so small to follow a path that led to him. Not because she had to, but because she believed she should. "Why today?" he asked, softer now. Lily looked down at the photograph for a moment, then back at him. "Because she said, "If I waited too long, you might never know," she answered. The honesty in her voice did not accuse him. It did something worse. It trusted him. Daniel exhaled slowly, pressing his hand lightly against his forehead, as if trying to steady the weight of everything settling into place. For the first time in years, he did not feel in control of the moment. And strangely, he did not want to be. He lowered his hand and looked at her again, this time without distance. "I should have known," he said, almost to himself. Lily tilted her head slightly. "You could not," she replied. "Mom said you did not have the chance." Daniel let out a quiet breath, something between a laugh and something heavier. A life he had not seen. A child he had not known. A love he had walked away from without realizing what it would become. And yet, here she was, not asking for anything, not demanding answers, just sitting across from him, holding space for a truth that had waited years to be heard. Daniel leaned forward again, his voice steadier now, but different. Changed. "Lily," he said, "would you let me help?" She did not answer right away. Instead, she studied him carefully, the way someone does when they are deciding whether a door is safe to open. And in that quiet pause, Daniel understood something he had never truly felt before. This was not about fixing the past. It was about what he chose next. Lily did not answer immediately. She held his gaze, her small face calm, but her eyes searching, careful, thoughtful, as if she had learned that words alone were not always enough. Daniel did not rush her. For once in his life, he did not fill the silence. He simply waited. "I do not need a lot," she said finally. "Mom says we are okay." The words were gentle, but there was something beneath them. Not pride, not denial. Protection. Daniel recognized it instantly. He had spent years protecting his company, his image, his carefully built world. But this was different. This was a child protecting someone she loved. He nodded slowly. "I understand," he replied, "but help does not always mean something big." He paused, choosing his words more carefully than he ever had in a boardroom. "Sometimes it just means not doing this alone anymore." Lily's fingers loosened slightly in her lap. A small shift. But Daniel noticed. He leaned forward just a little, keeping his voice soft, steady. "Is she at home right now?" he asked. Lily shook her head. "She is at a clinic," she said. "It is about 20 minutes from where we stay. I came here first." 20 minutes. Daniel's mind moved quickly, but not in the way it usually did, calculating numbers, schedules, outcomes. This time, it moved with something else. Concern. "Does someone know you are here?" he asked. Lily hesitated, then nodded. "I told the front desk I would be back before dinner," she said. Daniel exhaled quietly. There was responsibility in that answer. Structure. A life that, while not easy, had been held together with care. He glanced down at the photograph again, then at the folded letter beside it. Two pieces of a life he had not lived. And yet, somehow, they belonged to him. He reached out, not for the paper this time, but for something else. A decision. "Let me take you back," he said gently, "to the clinic." Lily looked up at him again, her expression unreadable for a moment. "You do not have to," she said. "I know," Daniel replied. That was the difference. Not obligation. Choice. He stood slowly, giving her space, not reaching for her, not guiding her, just offering. "We can go now," he added. "Or, if you would rather, I can call ahead first. Make sure everything is ready." Lily blinked, clearly not used to being given options like that. "You would come with me?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Yes." One word. Simple. but it carried something he had not offered anyone in a long time. Presence. Lily looked down at her hands, then back up at him. For a moment, the quiet strength in her expression softened, just a little. "Okay," she said. It was not excitement. It was not relief. It was something deeper. Trust. Beginning. Daniel felt it the moment she said yes. Not as something loud or overwhelming, but as something steady, real. He picked up the photograph and the letter, holding them carefully now, no longer as objects from the past, but as pieces of something he was finally ready to face. As they walked toward the exit together, the lobby seemed different. The same marble floors, the same glass walls, the same quiet efficiency. But Daniel no longer moved through it, untouched. For the first time in years, he was not walking toward another meeting. He was walking toward a life he had not known existed. And this time, he was not going to walk away. The evening air felt cooler as they stepped outside. Not sharp, not biting, just enough to remind Daniel that the day was moving forward, whether he was ready or not. His car was already waiting at the curb, a sleek black sedan that had always been just another extension of his routine. The driver stepped out immediately, opening the rear door without question. But this time, Daniel did not move right away. He glanced at Lily. "You can sit by the window," he said. A small thing. But to Lily, it mattered. She gave a quiet nod and climbed into the car, her movements careful, as if she did not want to leave any trace behind. Daniel followed, closing the door gently behind him. The city moved around them as the car pulled away. Traffic lights shifted from red to green. People crossed busy intersections. Storefronts glowed with warm light as the early evening crowd began to fill the sidewalks. Inside the car, it was quiet. Not uncomfortable. Just new. Lily sat with, her hands folded neatly, her gaze fixed on the window as buildings passed by in a blur. Daniel watched her for a moment, noticing the way she seemed both present and distant at the same time. "How far is it exactly?" he asked. "About 20 minutes, she replied, "if there is no traffic." He gave a small nod. There was traffic. Of course there was. But for once, he did not check the time. Instead, he looked down at the photograph still resting in his hand. He turned it slightly, studying it again in the fading light. "You kept this with you the whole time?" he asked. Lily nodded without looking away from the window. "Mom said it was important," she said. "She kept it in a book. I found it when I was 6. 6. Daniel let that settle. 6 years old, finding a piece of a story that had not been explained, and holding on to it anyway. "What did you think when you first saw it?" he asked. This time, Lily turned her head. "I thought you looked happy," she said. The answer came so simply, so honestly, that it caught him off guard. Happy. He looked at the younger version of himself again. She was right. There was no hesitation in that expression, no distance, no guarded edges, just presence. Daniel leaned back slightly, exhaling slowly. "I was," he admitted. The words felt unfamiliar, like something he had not said out loud in a very long time. Lily studied him for a second longer, then nodded, as if confirming something she had already believed. "Mum said that too," she added. Silence settled again, but this time it carried something softer. Not tension. Understanding. The car turned onto a quieter street, the city noise fading into something more subdued. Streetlights flickered on one by one, casting a warm glow across rows of small buildings and narrow sidewalks. Daniel noticed the change immediately. This was not his world. No towering glass, no polished entrances. Just simple places, real lives. "Almost there," Lily said quietly. Daniel nodded, his grip on the photograph tightening just slightly. As the car slowed, something shifted inside him again. Not fear, not hesitation, something closer to truth. Because in just a few moments, he was not going to be looking at the past anymore. He was going to face the part of it that was still alive. And for the first time, he did not look away. He leaned forward slightly as the car came to a stop. "Lily," he said gently. She turned toward him. "Thank you for coming to find me." She held his gaze for a second, then gave a small, almost shy nod. "I think you were supposed to know," she said. Daniel did not answer right away, because deep down he knew she was right. Some stories do not end. They wait until someone is ready to hear them. The car door opened with a soft click, and the quiet of the street settled around them. This part of the city felt different. No towering buildings, no polished glass reflecting ambition, just a small clinic tucked between a corner pharmacy and a narrow grocery store, its sign glowing gently under the evening sky. Daniel stepped out first, then turned back toward Lily. "You lead the way," he said. She nodded and stepped onto the sidewalk, her pace steady but small, like she had walked this path many times before. Daniel followed just half a step behind, not guiding, not rushing, just present. Inside, the clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and warm air. A soft hum of voices drifted from behind a half-closed door, and a television in the corner played quietly to no one in particular. The front desk receptionist looked up. "Hey there," she said gently, recognizing Lily. "You made it back right on time." Lily gave a small smile. "I told you I would," she replied. The receptionist's eyes shifted to Daniel, a brief moment of curiosity, but she did not ask questions. "He is with me," Lily added simply. That was enough. Daniel felt something shift again at those words. "He is with me. Not the other way around." The receptionist nodded and gestured toward the hallway. "She is in room 12, she said softly. Lily turned, her steps slowing just slightly now. Not fear, something deeper. Daniel noticed it immediately. He walked beside her, matching her pace. "You do not have to rush," he said quietly. Lily shook her head. "I am not rushing," she answered. "I just want to make sure she is okay." They reached the door. Room 12. It was closed, but not fully. A small gap let warm light spill into the hallway, soft and steady. Lily stopped. For a moment, she did not move. Her hand hovered near the door, but she did not push it open yet. Daniel stood beside her, close enough to be there, but not close enough to take the moment away from her. "She has been waiting for you," Lily whispered. Daniel felt his breath catch, not because of fear, but because of something heavier. Years. Missed years. Moments he could never return to. He looked at the door, then down at the photograph still in his hand. The past. And what waited behind that door was the present. He exhaled slowly. "I am here," he said, more to the moment than to her. Lily nodded once. Then, gently, she pushed the door open. Warm light filled the space as they stepped inside. And for the first time in years, Daniel Carter was not meeting a client or a partner or a stranger. He was stepping into a part of his life that had been waiting, quietly, patiently, for him to finally arrive. The room was quiet in a way that felt different from silence. Not empty, just still. Emma lay resting against a raised pillow, her face softer than Daniel remembered, her features touched by time, but unmistakably the same. Her hair, once always catching the light, now rested gently against her shoulders. Her eyes were closed at first, her breathing slow and steady. Lily stepped forward. "Mum," she said softly. The word alone seemed to carry warmth into the room. Emma's eyes opened, slowly, and when they did, they went first to Lily, as they always had. A faint smile appeared, tired but real. "You are back," she whispered. "I told you I would be," Lily replied, her voice light, careful. Then Emma's gaze shifted. It found Daniel, and for a moment, everything stopped. No words, no movement, just recognition. Years passed between them in that single look. Not loudly, not painfully, just quietly, like pages turning on their own. Daniel felt it all at once. The memory of who she had been, the reality of who she was now, and the space in between that he had never been part of. "Hi, Emma," he said, his voice low, steady, but carrying something new beneath it. Not distance, not control, something closer to truth. Emma's eyes softened, a quiet understanding settling into them. "You came," she said. It was not surprise. It was relief. Daniel stepped closer, stopping just beside Lily. Not too close, not too far. "I should have come a long time ago," he admitted. The words were simple, but they held years inside them. Emma gave a small shake of her head. "We cannot change time," she said gently. "Only what we do with what is left." Daniel nodded. For once, he did not argue with reality. He accepted it. He looked down at Lily, then back at Emma. "She found me," he said. Emma's gaze moved to her daughter, pride and love filling the quiet space between them. "She always does," Emma replied softly. There was a pause. Not awkward, not uncertain, just full. Daniel reached into his coat pocket and carefully unfolded the photograph. He placed it on the small table beside the bed. For a moment, all three of them looked at it. The past, preserved in a single frame. Then Daniel reached for something else. Not the paper, not the memory, but the present. "I am here now," he said, his voice steady, "and I am not going anywhere." Lily looked up at him. Emma did too. And in that moment, something shifted, not dramatically, not loudly, but enough. Enough to begin again. Outside, the evening continued, as it always did. Cars passed. Lights flickered on. The world moved forward. But inside that small room, something else happened. A story that had been paused. Started again. Because sometimes, the greatest kind of wealth is not what you build. It is what you choose to return to. And sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to walk away this time.